I grew up overshadowed by the golden child. She tried to seduce my husband. We exposed her, and my mother framed me, refusing her faults. Hello everyone. I need some help and maybe a place to rant. This will be a long one, so please bear with me. I, 33F, have always had a problematic connection with my younger sister, Kayla, 30F. Kayla is our family's golden child, which has caused me grief since we were little. Growing up, our parents always preferred Kayla. She was the beautiful, talented, and all-around perfect person. Meanwhile, I was the older sister who consistently fell short of their expectations. My earliest memories include occasions when I felt invisible next to her. One memory strikes out so vividly. I was about 8 years old, and it was my birthday. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, fantasizing about the cake, the gifts, and the attention, but as soon as Kayla entered the room, everyone's attention went to her. She was just 5 at the time, but she had a talent for stealing the show. She began singing a song she had learned in kindergarten, and everyone applauded, completely forgetting that it was my special day. My parents didn't notice the tears welling up in my eyes as I watched them adore her. This was a pattern that continued throughout our childhood. Kayla received the greatest clothes, the most attention, and all of the compliments. I recall feeling pleased with myself after receiving a B on a math test. However, when I presented it to my parents, they only glanced at it before asking Kayla about her day. She had colored a picture at school, and that was considered more impressive. The hardest aspect was that Kayla was well aware of her position within the family. She wasn't a malevolent child, but she knew how to use circumstances to her advantage. If we ever fought, as siblings do, she would scream and run to our parents, who would always support her side. I was always the one that got scolded, regardless of the situation. The dynamics remained rather stable as we grew older. Kayla excelled in whatever she did. She was a straight-A student, a star athlete, and eventually a social butterfly with a large network of friends. In contrast, I suffered both intellectually and socially. I was shy, introverted, and had difficulty establishing friends. Our parents frequently compared us, always adversely to me. "Why can't you be more like Kayla?" was a constant refrain in our home. High school was really stressful. Kayla was a freshman when I was a senior, and she rapidly gained popularity. She joined the cheerleading squad, was chosen class president, and boys wanted to date her. I was the nerdy senior who rarely had any friends and spent most of his time in the library. She seemed to be the center of my existence. One incident from high school still bothers me. There was a major dance coming up, and I had finally worked up the guts to ask a boy I liked to go with me. To my astonishment and happiness, he replied yes. But a week before the dance, he canceled, claiming he had invited someone else. Someone else turned out to be Kayla. She had no idea I had asked him, but it didn't matter. She got to go to the dance with him, whilst I stayed at home, devastated and alone. After high school, I attended a local community college while Kayla received a scholarship to a prominent university. Our parents were understandably pleased with her, but it hurt to see how little they cared about my accomplishments. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my tuition, but Kayla's expenses were covered by our parents. They paid her many visits, attended her college functions, and were continuously positive about her progress. Meanwhile, I had to fend for myself, both emotionally and financially. I eventually earned a nursing degree while Kayla went to law school. By then, I had learned not to seek my parents' approval. I moved out, obtained a job, and attempted to establish a life for myself. But the agony of those early years never left me. Kayla and I remained in touch, but our connection was strained. She was always the successful, attractive sister, but I was just myself. Fast forward a few years, I met a beautiful man named Brian, and we married. For the first time in my life, I felt truly appreciated and cherished. Brian was aware of my family dynamics and was really helpful. He helped me realize my own worth, beyond the shadows cast by my parents and sister. We purchased a home, and I began to feel like I could finally leave the past behind. But Kayla returned to my life in an unexpected way. She had completed law school and was working for a respected firm. She became engaged to a man who seemed perfect in every aspect. Our parents were ecstatic and couldn't stop talking about the forthcoming wedding. I tried to be pleased for her, but old feelings of inadequacy and hatred came back. Kayla asked me to be her maid of honor. I was taken aback. We weren't friends, and I questioned why she would want me in such an important capacity, but she insisted on rebuilding our connection. I reluctantly consented, believing that this would be an opportunity to repair old hurts. The wedding preparations were a nightmare. Kayla was a bridezilla, demanding and domineering. Every choice had to go via her, and she frequently rejected my thoughts and proposals. It was evident that she had not changed much. She still desired to be the center of attention, but I gritted my teeth and went along with it, hoping to support her and even gain some of her favor. Next came the bridal shower. It was a spectacular event hosted by our parents and attended by Kayla's numerous friends and colleagues. I felt out of place and uncomfortable, but I kept a brave face. During the event, our mother delivered a speech praising Kayla to the skies. She stated how proud they were of her accomplishments and how attractive she appeared. I stood there, feeling invisible yet again. But then something unexpected occurred. Kayla seized the microphone and began speaking. She thanked everyone for attending, then turned to face me. Her response was, "I want to take a moment to acknowledge my sister, who has always been there for me. I know I haven't always shown it, but I appreciate everything she's done. She's strong, kind, and an amazing person. I'm lucky to have her as my sister." I was stunned. Kayla had never publicly recognized me like this before. Tears welled up in my eyes, and for a little minute, I believed our relationship could alter. Perhaps this was a tipping point. However, the goodwill was short-lived. Kayla called me in a panic about a week before her wedding. She had misplaced the family heirloom necklace that our grandmother had given us, and she was scheduled to wear it on her wedding day. She was hysterical, and I dashed over to assist her in finding it. We flipped her place upside down and still couldn't find it. 2 days later, Kayla called me again, accusing me of stealing the necklace. She claimed I must have taken it out of jealousy. I was astonished and hurt. All I had done was attempt to help her, and now she was accusing me of stealing. Of course, our parents believed her, as they usually did with Kayla. I was devastated. Eventually, Kayla discovered the necklace in a drawer she had forgotten about, but the damage had already occurred. She never apologized for accusing me, and neither did our parents. The wedding went on, but I felt like an outsider in my own family. After the wedding catastrophe, Brian and I chose to concentrate on our respective lives and families. Brian, who had always been technologically inclined, began researching ways to make money online. Initially, it was a side venture, but he quickly discovered a great formula and began earning thousands of dollars within a year. His web projects were bringing in tens of thousands, and our financial situation had much improved. With our newly acquired fortune, we purchased a stunning mansion in a famous area. Brian surprised me with a Bugatti as a symbol of our success, and we soon had 2 beautiful children. Life was great, or so it appeared. However, my parents remained unconcerned about our accomplishments. Despite Kayla's recent marital issues, they paid her periodic visits and were more engaged in her life. Kayla had been living on her own since her marriage ended and was struggling with her work. She had been laid off from a top legal firm and was struggling to make ends meet. Her jealousy grew worse when she saw our success. She came over one day, claiming to want to reconnect and spend time with her nieces and nephew. Initially, I believed her. I assumed she was sincerely attempting to restore our shattered relationship. However, it did not take long to learn her genuine objectives. She started dropping up unannounced, often when Brian was home alone. She would dress provocatively and make subtle, flirty comments to him. Brian, being the faithful spouse he is, quickly informed me of her behavior. We were both stunned and outraged by her conduct. Rather than address her immediately, we devised a strategy to reveal her true colors. We installed hidden C cameras in the living room and other public locations to catch her in the act. It wasn't long until we obtained the evidence we required. Kayla made her move one day while I was supposed to be out running errands. She approached Brian, placed her hand on his arm, and whispered provocative things into his ear. "Come on, Brian," she said. "You deserve someone who truly appreciates you, someone like me." Brian played along just long enough to keep her talking. "Kayla, you need to stop. I love my wife, and this is incredibly inappropriate." But Kayla persisted, leaning closer. "She doesn't have to know. It'll be our little secret." That was the moment we'd been waiting for. Brian forcibly pushed her away, saying, "Kayla, I'm serious. You need to leave. This is wrong on so many levels." We documented the entire event on camera. With the proof in hand, we decided to take action. First, we convened a family meeting, which included Kayla's husband, who had been unaware of her activities. When everyone had gathered, we showed the video. The room was silent as the video aired. Kayla's husband's face became red with rage, and my parents were completely astonished. The video concluded with a tense silence before Kayla's husband stood up. "Kayla, how could you? After everything, you try to seduce your own sister's husband." His voice was full of surprise and hurt. Kayla stammered, attempting to come up with an excuse, but there was no disputing what we had witnessed. Our parents looked at her, disappointed and disgusted. "Kayla, we trusted you. We always believed you were the better daughter, but this is beyond forgiveness," my mother replied, her voice cracking. My dad shook his head. "You've brought shame to our family. I don't even know who you are anymore." Kayla's husband promptly filed for divorce. He left that same day, accompanied by their 2 children. My parents, who had always elevated Kayla to a pedestal, were forced to confront the truth of her behavior. They moved away from her, unable to look at her in the same manner again. Kayla's world came crashing down. She has lost her husband, her children, and the support of our parents. She tried to reach out to me, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive her that readily. The scars were too fresh, and the treachery was too severe. Brian and I continued to construct our lives together, stronger than ever. Kayla's betrayal, however terrible, had eventually brought us together. We knew we could handle anything as long as we had each other. Life went on, but the scars from the past remained. My parents, who had always preferred Kayla, struggled to accept her conduct. They visited less frequently, and when they did, it was evident that they were still dealing with their disappointment. They attempted to appear normal, but the strain was evident. Kayla, on the other hand, was attempting to gather up the pieces of her broken existence. She had lost her work and was struggling financially. Her attempts to reconnect with her husband had been unsuccessful, and he had filed for full custody of their children. She was alone and desperate. One day, she appeared at our door, looking more ragged and broken than I had ever seen her. She pleaded with me to let her in so she could explain. Despite my better judgment, I agreed. She sat at our kitchen table, tears flowing down her cheeks, admitting everything. "I'm so sorry," she wailed. "I've been jealous of you for so long. I saw how happy you were, how successful, and I couldn't stand it. I thought if I could take Brian away, I'd feel better, but I was wrong. I've lost everything." Her words struck me hard. For so long, I had regarded Kayla as the favored one, the one who had everything. I never realized how deep her insecurities went. I felt sympathy and hatred, but mostly, I was tired of the drama, the suffering, and the never-ending cycle of rivalry and animosity. "I don't know what to say, Kayla," I said. "You've hurt me in ways I can't even begin to describe, but I can't keep living with this anger. It's poisoning me, and it's poisoning our family." Kayla nodded, tears still running down her cheeks. "I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am." We sat quietly for a while, the weight of our common history hanging thick in the air. Kayla eventually went, leaving me to my own thoughts. Could I ever really forgive her? Could we ever get past this? In the weeks that followed, I concentrated on my family and my personal recovery. Brian was a rock for me every step of the process. We discussed Kayla, the past, and what the future might hold. I slowly began to let go of some of my anger and bitterness. I recognized that holding on to it was not benefiting anyone, least of all myself. Kayla continued to struggle, but she started to make changes. She began going to therapy, getting a job, and rebuilding her relationship with her kids. It wasn't easy, and there were failures along the road, but she was making an effort, which was something. My parents remained distant. The golden child had fallen, and they had no idea how to deal with it. They continued to see Kayla on occasion, but it was evident that nothing would ever be the same. They came to see us less and less, and when they did, the tension was evident. It seemed as if they didn't know how to interact with me without the usual dynamic of favoritism. One sunny afternoon, as I watched my children play in our lovely garden, I realized something profound. Despite everything, I was content. I had a nice husband, wonderful children, and a life I was pleased with. Kayla's acts had been painful, but they had also brought me to a place of strength and resilience. In the end, life continued. The scars of the past would never be completely healed, but they did not have to define the future. Kayla and I started to restore our connection, gradually and cautiously. It wasn't perfect and never will be, but it was a start. For the time being, I've decided to focus on the now and the future. The past had its purpose, but it no longer kept me captive. Brian and I continued to create a life together, full of love, laughter, and the occasional struggle. Our beautiful home exceeded all of our expectations. The mansion was huge, beautiful, and ideal for raising a family. The children enjoyed their new rooms and the wide backyard where they could play. Brian and I were happier than ever, and for a while, it appeared that we had put the turmoil behind. An unexpected turn. Life seems to have settled into a peaceful rhythm. Kayla and I worked hard on our relationship, and it gradually began to improve. She apologized sincerely, and I noticed a true improvement in her behavior. We began meeting for coffee, discussing our lives, and even planned family outings together. It was a relief to finally feel like I had a sister I could count on. Meanwhile, Brian's career soared. He accepted an early retirement option from his software employer, which came with a large compensation. We were now financially secure beyond our wildest expectations, and Brian was excited to spend more time with the family and work on personal projects. However, the peace we had worked so hard for was quickly broken. My mother, who had always preferred Kayla, appeared reluctant to accept the changes in our family dynamic. She couldn't get the suspicion that I had set Kayla up with the video evidence. The thought persisted in her head, and she became increasingly aloof and hostile. One morning, while I was preparing breakfast, the cops appeared at our door with a search warrant. They discovered other items in our garage that I had never seen before, including pieces from a stolen car that had been reported missing months before. I was stunned as they handcuffed me and hauled me into custody. I kept thinking that it was a terrible mistake. Brian, who was on a business trip, rushed home as soon as he received the news. He quickly engaged one of the top criminal defense attorneys in the country, Sarah Taylor, a talented but pricey barrister. Sarah assured us that she would get to the bottom of things and clear my name. The court date arrived soon. Sarah worked tirelessly in the days leading up to the trial, going over every detail and questioning everybody who may provide information. During our investigations, we discovered the awful truth. My own mother had planned the entire plot. Apparently, my mother had underworld friends who helped her obtain the stolen car parts. She had planted them in our garage, attempting to tarnish my reputation and, in her warped manner, teach me a lesson for what she saw as my betrayal of Kayla. She refused to recognize that her golden child was at fault, instead believing that I was the manipulator. The trial was tough. The prosecution presented their case, convinced that they had sufficient evidence to convict me, but Sarah was prepared. She provided irrefutable evidence that the car parts had been installed in our garage without our knowledge. She also called a witness, one of my mother's accomplices, who claimed that my mother had coordinated the entire operation. It barely took the jury 2 hours to deliberate. They judged me not guilty of all accusations. I was free, but the ordeal had left a lasting scar. My mother, however, was not so fortunate. The judge sentenced her to 5 years in jail for fraud and conspiracy. The judge made it clear that her conduct were both illegal and morally abhorrent. The courtroom became hushed as the verdict was read. My mother's expression was one of shock and rage. She never expected her scheme would fail so spectacularly. As they dragged her away, she gave me a hateful look. It was a sad moment, but I knew justice had been done. Following the trial, our family was left to pick up the pieces. Kayla was horrified by our mother's behavior and suffered from emotions of guilt and humiliation. She relied on me for support, and for the first time, I felt like the elder sister, the protector. Brian and I took some time to recover from our tragedy. We spent more time with our children, making positive memories and ensuring they felt safe and loved. Our bond grew deeper, and we recognized that no matter what obstacles we faced, we'd always have each other. Kayla, determined to atone for our mother's sins, worked tirelessly to reconstruct her life. She acquired a new job and began dating again. She stayed close to us, enjoying the family support she had previously taken for granted. My father struggled to accept my mother's infidelity. He had always been more passive, matching her powerful demeanor, but this occurrence shocked him to the core. He paid her a visit in prison, but their connection remained difficult and distant. Life ultimately discovered a new normal. Our family gatherings were tiny, but they were full of true love and connection. We honestly discussed the past, our faults, and the lessons we'd learned. It wasn't flawless, but it was authentic, which was enough. Through it all, Brian was my rock. His constant encouragement and affection kept me going, even on the worst days. His early retirement allowed him to spend more time with us, and he launched a new business that matched his technical knowledge with his desire to serve others. We shifted our focus to the future, instilling new traditions and ensuring our children grew up in a loving and supportive atmosphere. The past would continue to be a part of our tale, but it no longer defined us. 5 years had gone since the traumatic circumstances that led to my mother's imprisonment. Throughout those years, our lives gradually returned to a state of normalcy. Brian and I continued to prosper. Our children grew up happy and loved, and Kayla became a vital part of our family, having entirely repaired our previously shattered connection. Despite the anguish of the past, we were able to construct a tranquil and pleasant existence. Our family gatherings, while smaller, were filled with laughter and genuine connection. We frequently reminisced on the past, appreciating the lessons learned and the strength we found in one another. However, the serenity we had established was mattered once more when my mother was freed from prison. She had served her sentence, but her bitterness and animosity had not subsided. She was a different woman now, elderly and virtually blind, but her hatred for me had grown even deeper. Unbeknownst to us, my mother was scheming her retribution. She believed I had destroyed her life and wanted to hold me accountable. One fateful day, she took a shotgun from a nearby farm and started out to get me. Her objective was to catch me off surprise and take my life. I had no notion how dangerous the situation was. It was a bright afternoon, and I had taken the kids to the park. Brian was out running errands while Kayla was at work. I was sitting on a bench, watching my children play, when I suddenly felt a searing pain. I turned to see my mother standing a few feet away, her shotgun pointed directly at me. Her expression was a mix of wrath and determination. She screamed something incoherent and fired several bullets in rapid succession. Despite her fading eyesight and weak hands, 2 rounds reached their target. One impacted me in the buttocks, while the other damaged my right leg. The pain was intense, and I collapsed to the floor, unable to move. Bystanders phoned the police after they heard gunfire. When my mother saw the commotion and realized her plan had failed, she attempted to run but was swiftly captured by authorities. She was detained and eventually charged with attempted murder, which resulted in a 10-year prison sentence. I was brought to the hospital and had surgery to remove the bullets and fix the damage. The doctors told Brian and Kayla that I would recover completely, but the physical and emotional scars would take a long time to heal. Throughout my 3-week hospital stay, Brian never left my side. He was my rock, offering constant support and strength. Kayla came every day, bringing me my favorite delicacies and lifting my spirits with her stories and laughs. Their devotion and dedication were the pillars that helped me get through the hardest times. During those long, peaceful hours in the hospital, I had plenty of time to think about all that had transpired. My mother's actions left me feeling shocked and betrayed, which was significant. I couldn't comprehend how she let her anger for me consume her to the point that she attempted to kill me. Despite the anguish and bewilderment, there was a strong sense of appreciation. I was alive, and I had a loving family who supported me through thick and thin. Writing this piece is my way of absorbing what has transpired. It's a chance for me to express my gratitude to everyone who has helped me along the path, who has offered encouraging words when I needed them the most. Your support has meant everything to me. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tight during my mother's trial. The prosecution provided information about her crime, and the evidence against her was overwhelming. My mother sat there, a shell of her former self, but the rage and bitterness in her eyes were clear. She displayed no sorrow, only icy determination, which exacerbated the already awful situation. The jury did not take long to deliberate, given the clear evidence of her deliberate actions. They convicted her of attempted murder. The judge sentenced her to life in prison, highlighting the gravity of her conduct and the breach of trust in our family. As she was carried away, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. This was my mother, the woman who once looked after me, now damned by her own hatred and actions. Life after the trial was a lengthy process of recovery. The physical wounds began to heal, but the emotional scars were deeper. Brian was great throughout it all, his constant support and love providing me the strength I required. He balanced his work and caring for the children, ensuring that they understood what had happened in a way that preserved their innocence. Kayla was similarly amazing. Despite her own troubled connection with our mother, she supported me and offered comfort and understanding. She had really changed, and our friendship was stronger than ever. We relied on one another, finding solace in our shared experiences and hope for a brighter future. During my recovery, Brian and I had many long chats about our lives and our goals for the future. We choose to focus on providing a stable, loving atmosphere for our children, making them feel safe and valued. Our house became a haven for laughter, love, and the warmth of family. The community support was overwhelming. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers sent warm words and gestures. It reminded me of people's goodness and helped me restore my trust in humanity. I received numerous comments from people who had followed our tale, expressing their encouragement and sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. 3 weeks after the incident, I felt strong enough to compose this post. It's a chance for me to express my gratitude to everyone who has helped me along the path, who has offered encouraging words when I needed them the most. Your support has meant everything to me. Most of all, I'd like to thank my husband, Brian, and my sister, Kayla. Brian, you've been my rock, my strength, and my greatest love. Your constant support and love have helped me get through the toughest moments. Kayla, you've taught me what true forgiveness and redemption look like. Our bond has never been stronger, and I am grateful every day for the sister you have become. Life is unexpected, and the future is constantly unknown, but with the love and support of those that matter most, I'm confident I can tackle whatever comes my way. Thank you for taking part in my adventure. As I look ahead, I am filled with hope. My mother's acts, however painful, did not break me. They have helped me become stronger and more resilient. I am resolved to live a life filled with love, kindness, and compassion, and to instill in my children the value of forgiveness and family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.